Have you noticed that the older we get, the more our things start owning us, instead of the other way around? After 60, minimalism isn't about being trendy, it's about finally feeling free in your own home. The truth is, clutter has a way of sneaking in. It hides in closets, stacks itself on counters, and fills drawers we barely open. And little by little, it doesn't just take our space, it steals our peace of mind. But here's the surprising part. The moment you start letting go of the unnecessary, you don't feel smaller, you feel lighter, freer, and more in control than you've felt in years. Minimalism at this stage of life isn't about harsh rules or empty rooms. It's about creating calm in the spaces where you wake up, cook, read, and gather with loved ones. It's about giving yourself the freedom to focus on health, happiness, and the moments that really matter. Imagine opening a drawer and seeing only the things you actually use. Imagine walking into a room and feeling a sense of calm instead of guilt or overwhelm. That's what this is about. And it's not complicated, you can start small, and it can begin today. Stick with me, because these 7 steps could change not just your space, but your peace of mind. And if you're ready for that, hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. Because this journey isn't about losing anything, it's about gaining back your joy and freedom. Meet Maribel Joy, age 67, a retired librarian from Oregon. For most of her life, Maribel believed she had everything under control. She was the type of woman friends admired for her neat handwriting, her catalog of family photos, and the way she always knew which shelf a book belonged on. When she retired, people assumed her home would be the picture of order, rows of books alphabetized, files color-coded, and cabinets neatly labeled. And in many ways, it was. On the surface, everything looked tidy. But beneath that appearance of order was a weight she carried quietly. Her closets bulged with boxes she hadn't touched in years. Her shelves were lined not only with books she cherished, but also with titles she no longer cared about, kept simply because they had always been there. And her email inbox? Thousands of unread messages sat like tiny pebbles in her shoe, each one small but together forming a heavy burden she couldn't shake. Maribel described it this way: "I thought I was organized, but really, I was just stacking my stress into neat little piles." And that's the hidden truth for many seniors. Organization doesn't always equal peace. Sometimes it's just a way of disguising overwhelm, placing stress into boxes, drawers, and folders until it feels manageable. But those things still whisper at you every day. They remind you of what you haven't used, what you still need to sort, what you'll get to later. And later, after 60, starts to feel much too close. What makes Maribel's story relatable is how common it is. Many seniors across the United States, especially those who worked long careers, end up with homes that look fine to visitors but don't feel calm to live in. The pressure of decades of papers, clothes, souvenirs, and digital clutter can make every day feel just a little heavier. And it's not just about the objects. It's about the emotions tied to them. The guilt of letting go of something a child gave you, the fear of needing something later, the sense that you're erasing your own history if you donate or toss it. Maribel realized she wasn't alone. She began talking with other retired friends, former teachers, office workers, even a neighbor who used to run a bakery, and they all admitted the same thing. They didn't need more stuff, but they didn't know how to face the stuff they already had. That's when she turned to minimalism, not as a trend, but as a way to finally breathe again in her own home. Her journey shows us something important. After 60, minimalism isn't about stripping life bare. It's about noticing when organized clutter is still clutter, and finding the courage to replace stacked stress with real calm. And as you'll see in the steps ahead, Maribel's changes weren't about losing who she was, they were about making more room for the life she still wanted to live. Step 1. Redefine minimalism for this season of life. For Maribel, the word minimalism used to sound cold and unwelcoming, like a trendy movement for younger people who wanted to live in tiny houses with white walls and almost no furniture. She thought it meant giving up everything and living with so little that life might feel empty. But what she discovered is that minimalism after 60 is not about stripping your life bare, it's about redefining what truly matters for this season you're in. At this stage of life, priorities shift. When you're younger, you hold on to things for the someday. Someday the clothes will fit again. Someday you'll host that big dinner party. Someday you'll take up a hobby you bought supplies for years ago. But after 60, someday isn't the goal anymore. Today is. And that means your home should reflect who you are now, not who you used to be or who you thought you might become. For seniors in the United States, this redefinition is more important than ever. Rising healthcare costs, smaller living spaces after downsizing, and the desire to age safely at home all mean that clutter isn't just inconvenient, it can directly impact health and independence. A hallway crowded with unused furniture is more than an eyesore, it's a full risk. A kitchen stuffed with gadgets you never use makes it harder to cook healthy meals. Even shelves packed with old knickknacks can gather dust that aggravates allergies or breathing issues. Minimalism here isn't cosmetic, it's practical, protective, and deeply personal. Maribel's breakthrough came when she asked herself one question: does this item support my health, my safety, or my joy right now? If the answer was no, then why was it still in her home? That simple filter changed everything. It wasn't about keeping or tossing based on trends. It was about aligning her home with her needs in this exact chapter of life. The rocking chair her grandchildren loved to sit in? A clear yes. The box of broken lamps she always meant to fix? A clear no. This is where minimalism becomes empowering, not restrictive. You're not erasing your history, you're curating it. You're keeping the pieces that make your life easier, safer, and brighter, while finally releasing the weight of what no longer serves you. And here's the beauty: redefining minimalism this way doesn't mean living with less life. It means living with more space, more calm, and more joy in the years ahead. It's about building a home that supports the freedom you've earned, instead of holding you back with silent clutter from the past. If you asked yourself Maribel's question, does this support my health, safety, or joy right now? What's the first thing you'd be willing to let go of? Tell me in the comments, I'd love to hear. Step 2. Start with energy drainers. When most people think about decluttering, they picture tackling an entire room: the garage, the attic, the kitchen. But that approach is often overwhelming, especially after 60. The idea of emptying whole spaces can feel so exhausting that many seniors never begin. That's why the smarter place to start isn't with size, it's with impact. And the biggest impact comes from what I call energy drainers. Energy drainers are those small but relentless annoyances that quietly chip away at your peace of mind. They're not always obvious, but you feel their weight every single day. Maybe it's the drawer in the kitchen that won't close properly because it's crammed with utensils you haven't touched in years. Or the pile of magazines that you keep meaning to read but never do, each issue whispering guilt every time you walk past. It might even be the stack of bills on the counter that stares at you like a reminder of unfinished business. Maribel discovered this when she tried to start with her garage. She lasted 10 minutes before feeling overwhelmed and giving up. But when she shifted her focus to energy drainers, everything changed. The first one she tackled was a desk drawer stuffed with old receipts, pens that no longer worked, and tangled cords from devices she didn't even own anymore. It took her just 15 minutes to clear it out, but the relief she felt was enormous. Suddenly, she could open and close the drawer without a fight. That little win lifted her mood and gave her momentum to keep going. This is why starting small matters so much. Seniors often underestimate how much these daily stress points wear them down. Think of it this way: every time you struggle with a sticky drawer, shuffle past a cluttered counter, or trip over a pair of shoes that don't belong in the hallway, you're spending precious energy that could be used on things you love. Over months and years, those tiny drains add up to fatigue, irritability, and even lower motivation to stay active. By focusing on energy drainers first, you build confidence without overwhelming yourself. Each cleared space is a visible, tangible victory that proves decluttering doesn't have to be impossible. It can be quick, satisfying, and doable at any age. And once you knock out enough of these little stress points, you'll notice a shift. Your home feels lighter, your routine smoother, and your energy more available for joy instead of frustration. What's the one small clutter energy drainer in your home that frustrates you the most? A drawer, a pile, or maybe even your inbox? Share it in the comments. I'd love to see what's weighing on you. Step 3. The Golden Hour Rule. There's a hidden truth about clutter that most people don't realize. It doesn't just take up space in your home, it shapes how you feel every single day. And nowhere is that more obvious than during your golden hours, the first hour after you wake up and the last hour before you go to bed. These are the bookends of your day, the times when your mind is either preparing to step into life or settling down to rest. If those spaces are filled with clutter, your mind absorbs that chaos before anything else. But if they're calm and clear, they set the tone for peace, energy, and focus. Think about your mornings. Do you wake up to a nightstand covered in books you meant to read, pill bottles you haven't sorted, or half-finished projects? That mess doesn't just sit there, it greets you. Before you even brush your teeth, your brain has already been reminded of things left undone. For seniors, especially, that sense of unfinished business can create unnecessary stress. The same happens at night. If you go to bed staring at piles of clothes on a chair, papers stacked on a desk, or a phone blinking with endless notifications, your mind never really gets to rest. When Maribel tried the golden hour rule, she started small. She focused on her bedroom first. The top of her nightstand had become a landing spot for everything: old glasses, a pile of receipts, half-used lotion bottles, and a clock she didn't even like. She cleared it down to the essentials: a lamp she loved, her current book, and her reading glasses. That simple shift transformed how she felt at night. She no longer ended her day staring at clutter, and she began sleeping more soundly. In the mornings, the clear surface made her feel ready to begin again. The same rule can apply to other spaces where you spend your golden hours. Maybe for you, it's the kitchen table where you drink coffee in the morning. Maybe it's the recliner where you watch the news at night. Ask yourself, what's in my line of sight during my first and last hour of the day? If the answer is clutter, that's where you start. This approach is powerful because it gives seniors a manageable entry point. You don't have to overhaul your whole home to feel the impact. You only need to reclaim the spaces that influence your mood the most. And once you experience the relief of uncluttered golden hours, it becomes easier to extend that peace into the rest of your home. When you wake up tomorrow, what's the first thing your eyes will land on? Will it bring you calm or stress? Share your answer in the comments, I'd love to hear it. Step 4. The Travel Light Drawer. Maribel once admitted something many of us can relate to: if I had to pack for a trip tomorrow, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Her dresser was overflowing, her cabinets were crammed, and yet she often felt she had nothing useful. That's when she discovered the idea of the Travel Light Drawer, a simple but eye-opening exercise that reveals what truly matters at this stage of life. Here's how it works. Picture yourself going away for just 1 month. Not a move, not forever, just 30 days. What items would you absolutely need to feel comfortable, calm, and happy during that time? The key here is to think about what you actually use, not what you feel guilty about keeping. Maybe it's your favorite sweater that always makes you feel cozy, your Bible or journal, your reading glasses, a comfortable pair of walking shoes, or that mug you use every single morning. Whatever they are, place them together in one small drawer or box. That becomes your travel light drawer. Why is this exercise so powerful? Because it strips away all the someday items and focuses only on the right now. After 60, it's not about what we might need years from now or what we used to use decades ago. It's about what actively supports our health, happiness, and peace today. And when you gather those essentials into one space, you start to see the truth. Most of what fills our homes isn't really necessary at all. For Maribel, the drawer held just a handful of things: her warmest cardigan, the slim stack of letters she rereads on quiet evenings, her gardening gloves, and her favorite poetry book. Seeing those essentials together shocked her. Out of the thousands of items in her home, only a small handful felt essential to her daily comfort and joy. Everything else, extra shoes, duplicate kitchen gadgets, clothes she hadn't worn in years, suddenly felt like background noise. The beauty of the travel light drawer is that it doesn't force you to throw anything away. It's a gentle test, a mirror that shows you what truly matters. Once you see those essentials set apart, it becomes easier to question why the rest of the items are still taking up space. Instead of clinging to everything, you realize you already have what you need, and that knowledge makes letting go less painful. This step is especially freeing for seniors because it honors both practicality and sentiment. You're not erasing your life story, you're highlighting the pieces of it that still matter today. And as Maribel discovered, once you create your travel light drawer, you'll notice a shift. You'll stop feeling buried by things and start feeling supported by the few objects that actually bring comfort and peace. If you had to make your travel light drawer today, what would be the very first item you'd put inside? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear what makes your life feel lighter. Step 5. Rethink gifting and incoming clutter. One of the biggest reasons clutter keeps growing, even after you've worked hard to clear it, is that new things never stop coming in. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, and family visits often bring with them well-meaning gifts. Another sweater, another candle, another framed photo, another kitchen gadget. For seniors, these gifts can feel like both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, they are tokens of love. On the other, they often end up on shelves, in drawers, or boxed away, adding weight instead of joy. That's why one of the most powerful steps toward minimalism after 60 is to rethink gifting altogether. Instead of adding to the pile, more seniors in the US are shifting toward experience-based gifts. Imagine receiving dinner at your favorite restaurant with your daughter, tickets to a play with your grandchild, or a museum membership you can enjoy all year. These experiences create memories, not clutter. They strengthen relationships instead of filling closets. And unlike objects, which eventually gather dust, memories grow richer with time. Maribel faced this challenge with her family. Every holiday, her children and grandchildren gave her well-intentioned gifts, scarves, knickknacks, even small appliances she never used. She didn't want to seem ungrateful, but she also didn't want her home to feel more crowded every year. Finally, she sat down with them and explained, "I love your thoughtfulness, but what I'd love most is time with you." That year, instead of another item, her son bought her a pass to a botanical garden nearby. Together, they spent afternoons walking the trails, talking, and laughing. She said it was the best gift she'd ever received because it lived in her heart, not on her shelf. This shift is becoming more common nationwide. In fact, families are now creating experience registries, lists of activities or outings that can be gifted instead of things. Whether it's a weekend trip, a family cooking class, or even just prepaid movie nights, these kinds of gifts not only reduce clutter but also enrich life. They align perfectly with what seniors value most after 60: connection, joy, and meaningful moments. And there's another benefit. By setting this boundary kindly, you teach your family that your home is not a storage space for gifts, it's a sanctuary for peace. You show them that what you value most isn't more stuff, but more time together. That lesson can ripple outward, helping your children and grandchildren rethink their own relationship with possessions. So, as you embrace minimalism, consider this: clutter doesn't just come from what you already own, it often comes through the front door disguised as love. Redirect that love into experiences, and you'll gain more than a tidy home, you'll gain priceless moments. If you could ask your family to gift you one experience instead of a physical item, what would it be? A dinner, a trip, or maybe just an afternoon together? Share it in the comments, I'd love to know. Step 6. Digital decluttering. When most people hear the word clutter, they picture overstuffed closets or boxes in the garage. But in today's world, clutter doesn't just sit on shelves, it lives in our phones, computers, and inboxes. And for seniors, digital clutter can be just as exhausting as physical clutter, sometimes even more so. That's why one of the most overlooked parts of minimalism after 60 is digital decluttering. Think about it. How many unread emails are sitting in your inbox right now? Dozens? Hundreds? Maybe thousands? Every time you open your email, those messages silently nag at you. They whisper, "You still have work to do." Even if you never open them, the weight is there. The same is true for phones filled with apps you downloaded once but never use, or photo galleries with thousands of unorganized snapshots that make it impossible to find the ones that really matter. Digital clutter doesn't take up space in your living room, but it takes up precious energy in your mind. Maribel realized this the day she tried to send a photo of her granddaughter to a friend. She scrolled for nearly 10 minutes, swiping past screenshots, duplicates, and blurry images. What should have been a joyful moment felt frustrating. That was her wake-up call. She started small, unsubscribing from emails she never read and deleting apps she hadn't touched in months. The change was instant. Her phone felt lighter, easier to use, and far less overwhelming. And here's the important part. Digital decluttering isn't about erasing your history. It's about curating your digital life so that technology serves you instead of draining you. For example, seniors in the US are increasingly using cloud albums to create highlight folders, where only the most meaningful photos are saved for easy access. Instead of thousands of random images, Maribel now has a curated album of just her favorite family moments, birthdays, graduations, vacations, ready to relive anytime. There's also freedom in simplifying communication. Clearing your inbox down to the essentials means you see the messages that truly matter, notes from family, updates on medical appointments, or reminders you actually need, without wading through the noise. And deleting unused apps can make your phone easier to navigate, especially if technology sometimes feels confusing. The mental relief is real. Just like a tidy kitchen counter makes you want to cook, a clean phone screen makes you want to engage more positively with your digital life. For seniors, this can reduce stress, boost confidence with technology, and even improve safety by making it easier to find important information quickly. So, when you think about minimalism, don't stop at your shelves or closets. Ask yourself, is my digital world cluttered, too? Because every unnecessary email, app, or photo is one more layer of noise your mind has to process. Clear that out, and you'll feel lighter in ways you never expected. Be honest, how many unread emails are in your inbox right now? Share your number in the comments. You might be surprised how many of us are in the same boat. Step 7. Make minimalism a joyful habit. One of the biggest mistakes people make with minimalism is treating it like a one-time project. They think, if I just clean out this closet, if I just organize this garage, then I'll finally be done. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. Things have a way of sneaking back in. New gifts, new purchases, even old habits creeping up again. That's why the real secret to lasting peace isn't a single purge. It's turning minimalism into a joyful, ongoing habit. Here's how Maribel approached it. Instead of waiting for clutter to pile up until it became overwhelming again, she created what she called her joy check-in. Once a month, she set aside just 15 minutes, not an entire day, not a whole weekend, just a single pocket of time, to look at one area of her home and ask a simple question: does this still serve me today? That question changed everything. It wasn't about asking, did this serve me once? Or might I need this someday? It was about the present. Does this object support her health, her safety, or her happiness right now? If the answer was yes, it stayed. If the answer was no, it was thanked for its time and released. The key was that it wasn't about guilt, and it wasn't about loss. It was about actively choosing peace, presence, and freedom. At first, she did her joy check-ins in small places, her nightstand, her pantry, her coat rack. But the ripple effect was powerful. Over time, her whole home began to feel lighter, calmer, and easier to manage. And because she kept it up regularly, clutter never had the chance to sneak back in and overwhelm her again. What makes this habit especially meaningful for seniors is how gentle and manageable it is. 15 minutes is not overwhelming. It doesn't require heavy lifting, expensive storage systems, or drastic changes. It simply asks you to stay aware, to stay connected to your present needs, and to protect the calm you've worked so hard to create. And because it's a habit tied to joy, not deprivation, it becomes something you actually look forward to. The beauty of this step is that it reframes minimalism. Instead of being a strict set of rules, it becomes a loving check-in with yourself. Every month, you're reminded that your home is there to serve you, not weigh you down. You're reminded that the best years of life aren't behind you, they're right here, and they deserve a space filled with clarity and ease. If you did a 15-minute joy check-in this week, where would you start? Your nightstand, your pantry, or maybe your closet? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd begin. When Maribel first began her journey, she didn't see clutter as a problem. To her, it was just life's leftovers, neatly labeled bins, stacked boxes, and shelves lined with years of history. But as the months passed, she began to realize that even though everything looked orderly, her home carried a heavy silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that feels peaceful. It was the kind that presses down on you, reminding you of all the things you hadn't used, the projects you hadn't finished, and the memories you didn't know what to do with. Her home was full, but her spirit felt crowded. After embracing minimalism in a way that honored her current season of life, everything changed. Maribel's mornings no longer began with the weight of yesterday's clutter. Instead of waking up to a nightstand piled high with reminders of unfinished tasks, she opened her eyes to a space that felt calm and simple. Her day began lighter, and that feeling carried into everything she did. In the afternoons, she no longer shuffled around furniture or sighed at boxes collecting dust. She had clear floors for stretching, walking, and moving with ease, something especially important as she focused on staying active and independent in her late 60s. The transformation went beyond space. It touched her relationships, too. With the clutter gone, she felt more comfortable inviting her grandchildren over. They had space to play, to spread puzzles on the floor, to laugh without knocking over stacks of things. Instead of apologizing for the state of her home, Maribel found herself proud to welcome people into it again. And that shift, from embarrassment to joy, was one of the most powerful parts of her journey. Minimalism after 60, she realized, isn't about loss. It's not about counting how many items you own or living with stark white walls. It's about what you gain, the ability to breathe easier, to focus on your health, to rest without guilt, and to enjoy the simple, beautiful moments of life without distraction. For Maribel, it meant reclaiming her freedom. For others, it may mean lowering stress, improving safety, or simply creating a home that feels like a sanctuary rather than a storage unit. And now, it's your turn. Which of these steps could you start today? Could you clear a drawer, rethink how gifts come into your life, or set aside 15 minutes for a joy check-in? Comment below. I read every single one. Your story matters, and your journey can inspire someone else. If this video gave you new ideas or hope, hit that like button, share it with a friend over 60, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors. Because less clutter isn't less life, it's more of the life you've earned, more of the peace you deserve, and more of the happiness waiting for you right now.